and welcome everyone to At the Intersection this morning as we continue on our series about healing, and especially from all the many faith traditions, religion, spiritualities that we have in San Antonio, and a way I hope that we get to know each other a little bit better. And so we're going to start that in a second. I've been announcing this over and over again, but I'm going to do it one more time today. And while I'm bringing this up, I thought I had it all ready. Just a reminder that next Thursday is the only Thursday in the year that we do not meet. Next Thursday for the national holiday. And I'm also inviting you on screen. I hope you can see this. It's next Tuesday. I've been announcing it for several weeks now. It's free, open to the public, family friendly. But it really is, when I think about the entire picture of our time together, and I'm going to scroll down here. There's a general event schedule on the right there, but there's going to be a construction. I'm getting some feedback here. Sorry, guys. Are we okay, Bill? Did I lose you guys?
No, you're good. Keep going.
Okay, good. Anyway, there's a construction, and if you've never seen one of those, it's taking cans of food and shaping them into something. It's usually a competition, but this one isn't. And it's going to be in a shape of a heart. And as this has all come together, I'm realizing that our gathering on Tuesday is really a gathering of healing. When we look at the steps to healing as community, one of those, like the first step, is gathering together. That's how we begin to heal, by coming together, and breathing together. And frankly, the more outside breathing we can do, the more we heal. More oxygen. Singing helps us heal. More oxygen gets into the brain. And if we can do those things together, even more, we are this dynamic in our bodies. It's not a thing that we can think our way into. It's what we live into, what surrounds us, and how we do that together. So I really see the gathering on Tuesday as creating, not just with the cans, but with the gathering, creating a heartbeat within the entire geography of community. The gathering will be people intentionally wanting to come together and gather together in that kind of unity, yet our diversity. So I really see that we're creating a heartbeat through gifting and gratitude. And so I hope you come to this. Our guest this morning, who's bringing our briefing, Linda, is going to be at about, well, I would come if I were you, if you're not already there, to come about 6:30. But Linda is going to be helping to prepare the space in terms of the Indigenous community with healing drum and other instruments. So she and Hedda Martin are going to be helping to create that space from within that tradition, as then we enter into the cathedral for a multi-faith prayer service. So I hope you're all able to come to that, and inviting many others to do so. So I'm going to turn to Linda now and say, first of all, thank you. This all came together yesterday.
Yeah.
It talks about, I think, like the community. I know she's laughing, but it does talk about what community we do have here already, what trust we already have, even if it's not directly between people. We've been working hard over decades, and we could spend time talking about that. And we still have a long way to go. we still have a long way to go, but
Mhm.
we have been developing trust and community between our many faiths. And, what a peace plan. If people of all the many faiths just decided not to hurt each other, right? What kind of peace plan would that
Yeah.
be? Right? Just that. We're not going to hurt each other, right? Seems to me it's a part of all of our traditions, but through that golden rule and that ethic of reciprocity. So, Linda, we've invited you today to hear about healing from within the first peoples here in our country and here in our city. 13,000 years of caring and nurturing this geography and the people. So could you kind of give us, I don't know, an overview of what does healing mean? And what does that look like within our Native American community here in San Antonio?
Let me start by giving a small disclaimer.
Okay.
When we talk about indigenous healing or Native American healing, I can only speak from my experience and the people that I know. And what that means is that the things that I say today are from my experience. They are not necessarily what the Seminole do or the Lakota do or the Dene do, or it's what we do, what I do in this area from what I know of this area, and some teachings from Huicholes, some teachings from the Dene, some teachings from an Apache medicine woman that I know. And so I get, my disclaimer is, that it would be me saying, okay, this is what everybody does, and I want to make it clear, because I think we have a tendency to sort of lump people together, and when we do that, we miss the nuances of other traditions, of other ways of doing things, of other people. I think it's very exciting that you all are looking at a lot of different faith orientations around healing, because I think, as always, you'll see some commonalities and you'll see some differences, and that's the beauty of it. Some things work for one person and doesn't work for another, and you try something else and that works, and you just keep working at it until you get it right. I think the thing that I understand, and in the way that I work and the way that I know other people work, is that what you're looking for is balance. That when you get out of balance is when you start having problems. When you get too worried, you get too excited, you get too distressed, you get too whatever. When you get one way or the other, or you're thinking too much and you're not paying attention to your feelings, or your emotions and things that are going on with you internally, and you're only focused on the external, those are ways that you get out of balance. When we have people who've experienced war, they get very much out of balance because they're terrified, rightfully so. And so they get very scared. And in the Mexican tradition, we have a thing called susto. And with susto, it can happen from anything. You can get it with little children, you can get it with adults, you can get it with elders. It's a thing when you become shocked or afraid, or something traumatic happens. And there's certain ways that you deal with susto, and it's all about getting the person back into balance. Healing is really staying in balance, and occasionally, not always, but occasionally, we need help from someone else to get us back into balance. And that's where ceremonies happen, that's where healings happen, that's where connections are made with people, or are enabled or sustained with people, because a lot of it has to do with connecting. You know, one of the things now that's so difficult for all of us is how isolated we are, and that there's so much I wouldn't say pressure, but there's so much tendency to isolate ourselves when we're feeling bad. We pull away. We don't ask for help because you're not supposed to show any kind of weakness. That whole rugged individualism thing takes over, and you pull back. You don't use those connections that you have. You don't call on you don't ask for help. And the fact that you're not asking for help, I mean, how do I want to say this? When you're not asking for help, you're isolating yourself, and you're denying other people that presumably from being able to offer you their gifts. And that's I think that's a real tragedy. I think it's a real shame to not give people an opportunity to help you. You know, we're so used to, well, you got to do it on your own, or, oh, I'm fine, everything's okay. And it's just not. My granddaughter had a car accident yesterday, and she was pretty shook up. And I was talking to somebody, how is she doing? Well, she's fine. Well, she wasn't, but that's the first reaction is, she's fine, you're fine, everything's okay. Because we don't want to say we're suffering. We don't want to say we're out of whack. You don't want to say that you're not okay. And that there's something out of balance when we're not okay and we're saying we're fine. And the way, there's many ways that you get back into balance. That's what ceremonies are for. We do sweat lodges, we do other kinds of ceremonies. There's blessings that people do. You can smudge. There are lots of different ways that you help people to get back into balance. Prayer obviously helps you get back into balance, because it brings you back to some sort of centeredness. And the centeredness is the piece that creates the healing. And the healing can be at the physical, it can be at the emotional, it can be at the mental, or it can be at the spiritual level. And that out of balance can also happen at all those different kinds of levels. And that is not to say that, if someone has a broken leg, I'm going to go and pray on it. If they have a broken leg, I'm going to take them to the hospital and get them taken care of. But if they have a broken spirit, then that's a whole different approach. If they're having trouble relating, or they're terrified or whatever, then that's a different kind of situation. And there are also ways that we work with allopathic traditions, traditional, what you would call Western medicine, in conjunction with the kinds of healings that we do. I had my adopted father had a stroke, and they took him to the hospital, and then they took him to the sweat lodge. And so you do the two things together. It's not an either or kind of thing, because you're working with the whole person. You're not just working with their body. You're working with their spirit. You're working with their emotions. You're working with what they're thinking, and you're working with their body. You need to take the whole thing into consideration. And unfortunately, in allopathic medicine, that's not usually the case. Usually, if you have a broken leg, they treat your broken leg, and that's it. or if you have a tonsillectomy, they take out your tonsils and they send you home. That's it, right? And if they have something they can't figure out what it is, they give it a generic thing and, and they send you home, and you're trying to figure out, well, what the heck is this? And so it's a lot of it has to do, in my opinion, is with connection. It has to do with connecting to the earth. It has to do with connecting to the earth beings, and it has to be connecting with each other and with ourselves. A lot of times there's stuff going on with us internally we just don't want to deal with. It's like, oh, I'm fine, I'm not any problem. I can't sleep at night and I'm not eating, but everything's fine. I'm not distressed in any kind of way. I'm going to work, I'm paying my bills, I'm doing the things I need to do, so everything must be okay. And again, it's about not connecting with yourself as much as not connecting with Mother Nature, with my family or my friends or my loved ones or whoever's around me. There's just always more to it than what meets the eye. Not always, but a lot of times. Let me stop there, and if anybody has any questions or they want to add anything or make any comments.
We probably do, but it does make me think about our coming together on Tuesday night.
Yes,
And
exactly.
you've described those making those connections.
Exactly.
Excuse me. I bet there are questions, and again, I bet, that's all, but about what some of those things look like. The rituals, the sweat lodge, the ceremonies, and I'm not going to assume that for anybody, but I am inviting people to ask if they would like to hear more. Please ask what you would like to hear about. I'm wondering, though, as someone who's very aware of this need for healing, right? Yourself,
Sure.
that how are you as a community, being aware of the times we're in, being aware of the need for healing? How are you? It's a better question. How are you intentionally as a community working at healing in San Antonio right now? What are things that you're doing because of our times?
That's a very good question. I can't speak for other Native groups here, but I know that the Pilam Coahuiltecan Nation has a series of ceremonies that we do. One of the things that we are, one of our big intentions, one of our primary objectives as a nation, as a people, is to recover the remains of people who have been disinterred and put them back in the ground, put them back and rebury them. And that's a big focus for us, and that's a big healing for us. And we have a ceremony next week, after the day after Thanksgiving. We have a ceremony that we've been having since 1999 to honor that. We did a reburial of 100 and some odd remains that had been in boxes for years and years and years and years. And we were able, after many years of struggling and fighting and lawsuits and all kinds of things, to try and get those remains so that we could put them and rebury them because they were taken out of San Juan Mission. These were Catholics who were disinterred because they were Native Americans, and somebody wanted to study them. And that's for us, that's a huge healing. What we have, at this point now, we do 2 of those kinds of ceremonies a year. We're getting ready to do a 3rd. We have those of us who pour water have sweat lodges on a regular basis. And the sweat lodge is an opportunity the sweat lodge is, you know, people think of it akin to a sauna, but it's not. It's much more than that. It's the sweat lodge. It's interesting because I did a talk when the eclipse was getting ready to happen. I did a talk at Trinity about Native American cosmology and learned as part of my learning about this, that the Ojibwe have a particular constellation that they've identified as a sweat lodge, and for me that was a real. It was so significant for me because it explained a lot of things about sweat lodge. Because when you're in the sweat lodge, your spirit, I don't know how to say this exactly. The intention of the sweat lodge is it's a purification ceremony. And the purification happens body, mind, emotions, and spirit. And when you in the lodge, you connect with these beings, and you connect with the spirits around you, and you leave things in the lodge. And the belief is when you leave the lodge, you leave as a newborn. When you come, because you're in the mother's womb, that's what the sweat lodge represents. So when you come out of the womb, you're a newborn. You can start your life again. And in some traditions that I understand, I believe they're somewhere in South America, when you do this tradition, you take a new name. You actually become a new person, and it's an opportunity for you to start all over again. And that particular notion of being able to leave those things behind, particularly for people who have been really traumatized. And I know that it works. It has helped a number of veterans who they go into the lodge. I mean, it doesn't necessarily happen with one time, but the lodge is a healing place for that, because they connect to the earth and they connect to the stars. And that connection then is what does the healing, and it helps them to move on and to be able to heal themselves.
Yeah, it's like that reconnecting that you talk about, to be connected in wholeness.
Connected to themselves and connected to the earth, connected to the stars, connected to the spirits around them, connected to the people in the lodge with them. You know, I mean, it's just a beautiful experience, and it can be very healing.
I noticed in chat that just a simple question: where are the nearest sweat lodges to San Antonio?
Oh, they're just a lot of different places. There's one out that I know of. There's one in Canyon Lake. There's one out in close to Natalia. There's I know a couple of people here who have them in their backyards. They're you know, it depends on. Typically, they're in the home, or they're in the place of whoever's pouring the water, because the person pouring the water is the one that is the leader of the ceremony, and is the one that guides the ceremony. And there's different traditions. Like I would do a sweat lodge one way, Rosalia would do it another way. ¿Cómo se llama? Frankie does it another way. You know, there's just different people learn different traditions, and there's different ways in different groups about how you do these lodges, and how, you know, what songs you sing, and just different ways of approaching it.
And so, is there a special name or title for the person who pours the water, or is it the one who pours the water?
It's the one who pours the water. Yeah. There are words for the spiritual leaders and things like that in their whatever their native language is.
Mhm.
But yeah, typically it's the person who pours water.
And learning how to do that, I'm guessing it's from experience and life and living within that.
It's experience and life and living, and it's also somebody teaches you.
Mhm.
You have a person that is your teacher or your guide or your
Mm.
I forget what the other term is, but you it's not, how do I want to say this? Like I got permission to pour water from my teachers who were Dene. And the lodge that I use is a Sundance Lodge, because that's not where I learned it, but that's the primary place where I learned it. And they are the ones that teach me, and they come every year or two over here and run a lodge for us here so that I can continue to learn, and other
Mhm.
people can experience a little bit different kind of lodge, because everybody does it a little bit differently, even if you're in the same tradition. Because
Mhm.
you just, people, the way I was taught is the way what the spirits tell you to do is what you do. There's certain basic things that you do. There's songs and there's different ways that you interact, but there are also certain things that you do if you're doing specifically a healing, if you're doing some other kind of intention for the lodge, because the lodge has different intentions.
Mhm. Mhm. There's a question: does the process incorporate forgiveness of self, others?
Yes, yeah, definitely. And this reburial process is all about forgiveness. It's about us forgiving ourselves for not keeping this from happening. It's for us, forgiving ourselves for not or for being well, just for the mistakes that we make as we do these things, and then forgiving the people who actually did the disinterment, particularly if it was intentional.
Mhm.
And so it's sometimes they'll these remains are found accidentally. They're doing a construction project like at Santa Rosa, at the
Mhm.
Santa Rosa Hospital several years ago. They found some remains. The problem we have is that we know, and people who are working on these construction projects usually know there's some remains there. It's
Mhm.
one of the problems that we've had with the Alamo, is they kept saying there's no remains here. And we have records that there's 1,200 people buried there.
Mhm.
So it's like,
I
well,
just,
you
yeah,
know,
I think we could all relate to,
yeah,
the harm, the pain, the suffering that would go with that. I grew up
yeah.
at the foot of Cemetery Hill in our community in
Oh,
Illinois. And my children are still kind of, when we go back to Illinois and we visit, we always go to the cemetery, and
sure.
they're like, this is so strange that you do this. I'm like, well, but small community, this is our community,
That's
and
right.
this is
That's
where
right.
they are. I can't even
Yeah,
fathom the moving of that. We're going to
yeah,
take a little pause, Linda.
sure,
Thank you for what you've brought us. And if you're able to stay with us for 15 more minutes, it's probably would be grand. I'm sure there are other people who have some more
sure.
questions. If you need to go, that's okay too.
No, I'm fine. It's early
Okay.
enough that I don't have any other commitments.
Well, we try to finish, the main portion of it by
Yeah,
8:30, so people
sure.
who
Yeah.
need to get on with their day. But um, so next week, a reminder to everyone, there will be no At the Intersection. It's the only Thursday that we take off in a year. So don't come next week. The following week, I'm hoping that we will have someone from within the Jewish tradition come to us and talk about healing from that tradition and religion. So we might bump some of those depending on what's going on in our world. We've done a couple series, and in those series, every once in a while, things happen, right? And we'll come back maybe
Sure.
to those, but that's the plan in 2 weeks. So for those who need to leave us, and some have already, we're grateful for you coming, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Next week.
Are there
No, not next week.
not next week, 2 weeks? Thank you, Linda. See, you're paying attention. I have one question, and then I want to really encourage others to, again, to keep asking questions or thinking. For someone like myself, who hasn't grown up in the same culture and faith traditions, spiritual traditions as you, and this question could be asked of any of these traditions that we're talking
Yeah.
about, right?
Sure.
How, obviously, reading, we can learn more about these
Sure.
things. Getting to know more people like you and talking and finding out. Is there a respectful way for those who are not part of the same tradition to experience some of those traditions, to know more and maybe experience healing in a way they never have? Is there a respectful way to do that?
Yeah, I think there is. The thing you have to understand is that people who practice these traditions are very careful,
I know.
because we've had a lot of experience with somebody coming, let's say, to a sweat lodge 2 or 3 times, and then they start running a sweat lodge. And they think they know it because they've been there. What is there? You just pour a bunch of water.
Been there, done that. I can do it too.
You can do that. Why I can, whereas I was 10 years studying before I was allowed to actually pour the water. And that's the piece that, I mean, if you want to come as a guest, like when people ask me if they can bring a guest to the lodge, my question is, why they want to come? Because I'm not particularly interested in tourists. People who are coming to say, "Oh, I went to a sweat lodge." You can, if you want to do that, go to Arizona. There's people here, I'm sure, who, if you just pay them some money, they'll run a sweat lodge for you. Or if you go to some places, some of the resorts in Mexico, they offer sweat lodges in some of these. I know that in Puerto Vallarta, they have some resorts where they offer sweat lodge as part of your stay. And if I don't have a problem with that, if that's the way you want to do it. I personally, I'm very careful about who comes, because I'm not interested in your coming and being able to say you came to a sweat lodge. If you genuinely want to come and experience that and get some healing from it, that's a different story. And usually somebody who comes like that comes because a friend of theirs who's been sweating with us invites them. And that's pretty much how it works. And again, it's because, anybody who's done any of these ceremonies has had somebody who's come and either taken pictures at them, which is completely forbidden. You don't take pictures at ceremonies, and they put them on Facebook, and they don't have any concept of what sacredness is, and so it's really hard to let people in to these ceremonies, because we just have to be very careful. We don't want people thinking that all you have to do is come once or twice and you can go run the ceremony, because it doesn't work that way. You have to, in any given ceremony that we do, there's an interaction with the spirits, and you need to know how to connect to those spirits. You need to know how to deal with somebody who collapses at a sweat lodge, and whether is she having a problem, or is she just having a vision? In Sundance, it's the same way. You know, the Sundancers, sometimes because they don't eat and they don't drink for 4 days, sometimes they'll collapse, but they're collapsing because you have to know whether this is true or not. They're collapsing because they're having a vision. And if you go and you disturb them, you're interrupting their vision. And so you have to, you need to know certain things that you're not going to learn with one time that you go. And in any ceremony, I don't care if it's a mass or it's a, you know, it doesn't matter what it is. In any kind of religious ceremony, you're not going to learn everything once or twice. You know, people study for years. Well, it's the same way with us, with ceremony. These are spiritual practices. They're not entertainment. They're not tourism. They're not, although there are some people who take them and use them as tourism. And if they want to do that, that's on them. You know, that's their deal. And if you want to have an experience of it, you can go with them and you'll get an experience. And you know, that's a different way of doing it.
It makes me think of what we talk about in terms of at the intersection and the work that we've been doing with the city and the faith community in San Antonio, but that ethic of reciprocity, that golden rule, but to respect others' traditions.
Right, exactly.
Right. As we would want ours respected.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And the other side of that, to not disrespect in ways that we don't want to be disrespected, right?
Right.
And so I really appreciate those insights. Can people get in touch with you? How would they do that if they wanted to?
Sure.
What would that?
You can, my phone number is 210-872-5928. And my email is lindax1944@icloud.com.
And I'm putting that. I can't believe I think I got them both right. I put those in chat.
Yeah, that's good. That looks right.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Any other last comments, thoughts for Linda? Just go ahead and open up your mic if you want. I'm just very grateful. I'm also grateful for what you added to Compassionate USA and that the world, clearly the world.
Thank you. That was a real honor to be able to do that.
Yeah. It's we've got people watching your video, Linda, in Australia. I know. And in Africa.
Oh my goodness.
In Sweden. And those are ones that I know about. I'm sure there are in India. So
well,
yeah.
thank all of you for the work that you're doing with this, because it's so important and it's so needed. You know, just to have that notion of compassion and sacredness and respect for each other. It's such a necessary component of life, and so many times we just don't get it. You know, people don't understand it. They don't practice it. It kind of makes them nervous, I think, sometimes, you know. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your morning.
Well, I'm
us.
happy to do
really
this.
appreciate it.
Yeah, I feel,
and I'm so looking forward to next Tuesday.
Yeah, it should be fun
with you and Hedda. Yeah, I'm really.
Hedda's really good too.
He is.
Yeah.
He brought Healing Drum when we had a COVID memorial downtown. He prepared that space as well, and
yeah, he's really good at that. Very good at that. Yeah.
Well, thank you all for being with us.
Thanks.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you
Yes,
so much.
glad to do it. I'm really
Look at
glad
this. Sharon's
thank you.
here from Canada with us.
Yeah.
Are you in
thank you.
Canada?
Thank goodness.
This was so beautiful. Thank you. So clear and just, you know, eloquent. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure to
And
be
it does look like you've moved back, Sharon. There are boxes in here. Sharon lived with us, Linda, in San Antonio for several
okay.
years, precisely during the pandemic, but just
Oh my goodness.
moved back to Canada recently. So
I miss
Oh,
you.
still with us. So
yeah, sure.
thank you all. We'll
Thank
see you
you.
in 2
Beverly has
weeks.
Beverly has her hand up.
Oh,
Oh,
good. I didn't see
yes.
that. Beverly?
Well, thank you all. I just wanted to be able to say
Yeah.
that this is in our foundation, West Coast Foundation. This is called Thankful Thursday, and we spend time literally sending things to our employees and others we've worked with to say thank you. I just want to be able
Great.
to say I am so thankful to you, Reverend Helmke, for doing this. This has just become a long running thing. It's a great way to end and actually sort of start another week. Thank you all for everybody
Yeah.
who's come. Miss Ximenes, this has been wonderful.
Certainly, thank you.
But I just wanted to thank everyone on this phone, everyone on this call, because it's so great to see you all once a week, just to know that you're okay, to see your faces, to see your smiling face. I'm very thankful on Thankful Thursday for you all. So I just wanted to just
Good.
say that. Thank you so very
Good.
much, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, Beverly. Have great days. Beautiful
Thanks.
weekends.
Thank
Great
you.
week.
Thank you.
Love you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.